And I'm giving you the answer right here. The way to pass each of those tests is full acceptance, full loving embrace. No matter what it is, embrace it, accept it, and further accept it with love. No matter what it is. Jesus said, turn the other cheek, and I'm not saying anything different here. I'm saying no matter what it is, if you are dedicated to this, then see each test as a lesson in unconditional love. One of the members of the Wild Satsang community, Jeff, brought something up really pertinent, and that is, it seems each time we have an incremental awakening, and oftentimes this goes in incremental awakening up until we're primed for a much larger perspective shift, and ultimately the dissolution of personal perspective entirely will be tested by these interesting events in our personal lives. In Jeff's circumstance, someone told him that they were going to gift him something for Christmas, but instead ended up gifting it to somebody else. And initially Jeff had the reaction, well, why would you gift something that was intended for me to somebody else? Am I not as important? And things like this will continue to come up for you as you have these incremental shifts in perspective, ultimately leading to the dissolution of personal perspective entirely. So in Jeff's circumstance, luckily he caught himself in that and therefore confirmed his broader state of awareness. He caught himself in that feeling of, am I not important? And that's the test. That was the test at that level of awareness. Self-importance, the idea of self-importance, and whether or not that can be given to you or taken away from you based on what happens in phenomenal reality. And of course, your importance is never in question. You are the most important thing in the universe because you're the only thing in the universe. You are the universe, and there are no things in the universe. Either there's just the universe or there's just consciousness. Those are the same thing. What is the relationship between consciousness and matter? Doesn't all matter take place within consciousness? Isn't matter in physics a law of consciousness? Science will come here, and I think they'll come here very rapidly. Perhaps with the assistance of AI. Another member of our community, Peter, who is part of the Patreon Wild Satsang Non-Duality Club, is currently working on AI and has some interesting insights. What's up, Peter? Thank you for your contributions again to the community. But yes, your level of awareness will continue to be tested. And each time you're tested, I encourage you to take it as a positive marker of your attainment. If you're not being tested, that means you're not aware of the present boundaries of your awareness. Ultimately, there are none, but until we discover that directly, there will constantly be barriers between what we perceive as self and other. And those barriers will constantly provide tests for you. Ultimately, these lessons, some have called it karma, some have called it the law of one. If you're interested in the law of one, there's a channeling by Ra in a series of 5 books that I recommend. Although it's in alignment with the non-dual message, obviously in the title, the law of one, it deals primarily with the phenomenality, the physical implications here on Earth and elsewhere of what oneness means. So along the pathway of the dissolution of the singular self, the individual self, the ego identity, as you blow past those illusory boundaries, you will be tested. And I'm giving you the answer right here. The way to pass each of those tests is full acceptance, full loving embrace. No matter what it is, embrace it, accept it, and further accept it with love. No matter what it is. Jesus said, turn the other cheek, and I'm not saying anything different here. I'm saying no matter what it is, if you are dedicated to this, then see each test as a lesson in unconditional love. Love is full acceptance and full embrace. Love is seeing everything as one and seeing everything as the ultimate self, the selfless self. We are all one. And the more you act in this way, the more you will pass these tests. Again, I have no idea why there seems to be tests at each level of broadening awareness, up until the final test, which is the fear barrier that arises of no self, but it does. And I'm giving you the answer key to all the tests: accept, love, allow. Of course, wisdom comes into play, and discernment comes into play here as well. And that is, always act in loving kindness, but with a level of discernment that still allows for you to disallow violence, to disallow harm of self and others. This is a peaceful practice. Full allowance and full embrace is the full allowance and full embrace of the knowledge that all is one. And in that embrace, there is a wisdom, and that wisdom does not allow for harm, does not allow for violence, it does not allow for manipulation or taking advantage of others. So that's the level of discernment that must be applied when going through these tests. Ultimately, this is a devotional practice. After total awakening comes devotion. There's still devotion, and the devotion comes into play with the dedication to treating everyone as the self, to acting through this knowledge that all is one and that all is love. Love is the binding force of reality. It's what holds all of this together. Without love, everything would be empty space. Gravity itself is an example of love. And I bring up that example because it's an attractive force, a binding force that brings together, and yet is outside of humanity's typical definition of love. I bring up that example purposefully because love is not a human emotion. What we feel as love is an interpretation of the true love, which is a binding force in harmony amongst physical creation. And of course, physical creation itself is just a lesson in love within pure consciousness, which is, of course, non-physical. Life is ultimately a lesson in love, and non-duality is just a description of that. Any questions, put them in the comments. Thank you for your thoughtful contributions. All my love.